Story time. By now, both BFB and Teapot were over. 4 still disliked 2 for obvious reasons, but dealt with him as he was supposed to, of which he didn't really care for. The eliminated contestants were no longer in the exit, and everybody was simply having conversations within one another. But then everything blacked out, and they were suddenly transported to a new location. They looked around with surprise, as they weren't expecting this. And someone new, someone they'd never met before, showed up and said, "Hello. I'm glad that I've gotten such a wonderful audience for my little killing game." She smiled. "Killing game?" said 4, surprised. "For a silly killing game, I could revive anyone who dies." The character looked at him as if he were a moron and said, "You know, not everywhere you can use your powers, right?" 4 then quickly figured out this place was most likely pelted all over with dragon scales. Magic resisting dragon scales. And you didn't want to use magic whenever there are dragon scales around. She sighed and said that what will be happening is she will be choosing one character as the murderer. She would not specify who. And every single day, the murderer will be given a weapon to use. This weapon can be used in any way they like, and they can even exchange it for something else. They can kill whoever they want, but they are only allowed to kill one person and one object only. When an object has died, they will be given 30 minutes before I will tell everyone that someone had died. It's essentially Damaramba, but with objects. She smiled and said that today they wouldn't really be doing anything. It was simply just a warm-up day to get used to the surroundings. However, at the end of the day, the murderer will be given their first weapon. And they will get to choose whoever they pleased to kill. "And 4, she said, looking at him, "you won't be able to use any of your powers. Your screeching, your exit, and your revival abilities will be completely unallowed in a place like this. I coated this place with a special serum. It's made with dragon scales, fire dragon scales to be precise, as well as a special sap you can only get from alternate universes. It's essentially just ordinary tree sap, except it's from an AU where human beings have unbelievable powers and often have wars within 3 or 4 people. The war is often expanding to usually a school-type grouping." She then said, "Go ahead and disperse," as she disappeared. Minutes went by and nobody really did much. They simply explored. There wasn't really much to do. However, everyone had essentially gotten into their teams. Their old teams from BFB. All 8 of them. Of course, winner decided to simply go with hosts. 4, 2, and X. And have a conversation with them. Since he didn't really have a grouping. Nobody really liked him. Which he found odd. There wasn't really much to do, so when they get alarmed that an object had been killed, that meant the 30 minutes that they had already been dead had subsided. Everyone quickly stormed the location that they were told the murderer had hit. 4 and 2 were the first ones there, Winner being close behind. And 4 became greatly distraught. The first person to get hit by the murderer was his treasure, X. His limbs were cut off, as well as each and every piece of him being essentially torn to pieces, as if to leave nothing behind. There was no murder weapon, which meant whoever had killed him knew what they were doing. The entire grouping looked around and were confused. They didn't know what to do. They were given 20 minutes to discuss within whatever teams they desired to be part of. They essentially talked within one another about what had happened. Pencil looked over at Bubble and said, "Hey, Bubble, do you have any ideas who it might be?" Bubble said that no, they didn't really have a clue, but seeing how Four's little treasure had been completely demolished, it most likely would have been a more violent object. The other teams began to decide it was Match. They were all returned to the same place they were teleported in the first place. And the character explained what was going to happen. They were all going to put in a vote who they thought was the murderer. And whoever they thought was the murderer was going to be eliminated, aka killed as well. And if it isn't the murderer, the game goes on with the same murderer. However, if they do get the murderer, the game resets and a new murderer is selected, which means all dead characters are revived, including the murderer. Everyone began to fill out their ballots with their name on the top and whoever they thought was in the middle, and put them in. She looked at the tallies and said, "Well then, it seems a lot of characters believe Match is the murderer." "Matchy didn't do it," said Pencil. "I would guess it was 2. 2 looked at Pencil surprised and said, "The heck? You know both me and 4 wouldn't even hurt the little guy. I mean, come on. We're both numbers. And besides, why would I want to get 4 mad at me?" "I don't know," said Pencil. "You did get 4 mad when you stole most of his contestants." "I didn't think it would get him that mad," said 2. "Sure you didn't," said Pencil. The current host smiled and said, "Well, the votes are up. Most objects believe Match is in fact the murderer. Match, you're getting eliminated." But I didn't do it." The host smiled and said, "I know. Match is not the murderer." As a chain underneath Match's leg pulled her up and into a fiery inferno inside of the middle of the room. The host explained that whenever somebody had lost the game, either by believed that they were the murderer or they were the murderer and they got caught, their elimination essentially would be different depending on their typing. If they were flammable, usually what would happen was fire. If they weren't, so characters like Fiery and Fiery Jr., instead water would be used. Everyone was definitely worried. The murderer had gone completely unaffected, without any problems. The host then said that the second most popular option was Snowball, and the third most popular option was 2. I didn't do it, said 2, angrily. The host smiled and said, well, unless you get yourself eliminated, I'm not going to say if you are or not. 2 didn't like this. The host then came down and said, well, since you guys had failed to find the murderer, you will be staying for another night. Not to say that you won't be staying for a while, as it might be difficult to find out the murderer. She smiled after this statement, and she brought out a group of cards. The cards were the voting numbers, with matches being added to the group, now that she was eliminated. It said, grab the card that has your name on it. The one you chose to use to eliminate someone, or at least try to. On the back of it, we'll have your door number and your bed number. D is for door, B is for bed. The beds are sorted in 4s. They are 4-point bunk beds. How did I make that into a tongue twister? Anyway, the host smiled, I might as well tell you guys my name. I am Davy Dill. And all of you, it's about time to grab your cards and go to your respective rooms. I will have dinner ready soon, but your rooms will essentially be assigned classes. Since 2 characters were already eliminated, that meant essentially only 2 of the bedrooms would only have 2 people missing. As everyone talked within their groupings, apparently Davy Dale said that it would change every single night, so they aren't stuck with the same people. Bubba looked up from his bunk bed, or hers, I don't remember, if they're male or female, oh well, and smiled. She simply looked around. And said, the murderer might be any one of us, though I highly doubt it's anyone in this room. The others agreed. They had dinner and went to bed, and that was day 1 of BFB, Murderer's Mystery. If you guys want, you can go into the comments below and tell me who you think is the murderer. If the murderer is undetected, by the time they reach day 5 of this whole thing, you guys will be included in the voting, and it will not just be the objects. Anyway, see you in the next one. This has been BFB Murderer's Mystery.